Hey, welcome to the Opinion Junkyard. This is the very first episode of Opinion Junkyard. And basically, as you can see of the name, there's not a format. It's just opinions for whatever reason. And I have Sigmund here. What's up, Sigmund?
What's going on, Berman?
Man, we were just talking about podcasting because he's I'm not going to say he wants to, he's going to start his podcast. And this might be the first time people see you. And then when they're like, oh, that's when Sigmund started way back then.
That was my first start right here.
He's like a trillionaire. And he's like, oh, yeah, it was back then.
But this is actually my first time being on a podcast. So,
oh, okay.
It's the first time.
And this isn't even like your normal podcast. It's not like I said. We literally set this up in the messy desk. But I wanted it like that because I think this is how we really do. Actually, we were just sitting here having conversations, deep conversations about a bunch of stuff about life. And I'm like, if we capture these conversations, like, I think they're interesting. Because, we'll sit here and talk about solutions to world problems, and we'll solve them, and no one knows. So I want to start with life. And I was telling you, I have a problem with understanding life, right? Mm-hmm. Because is life a big waiting room for death? Are we just like, when you have bread and you leave it sitting out and it starts getting moldy and then the mold starts eating it and eventually it's just dust. Is like planet Earth like a piece of bread and we're like kind of like the mold eating it? One day we're just gonna, or is there like a bigger spiritual thing? Or what do you think?
Well, what does they say? There's only two things certain, is birth and death. That's it.
That's true.
Once you're born, it's absolutely certain that you're going to die. Let me tell you a funny one. My grandparents, my grandmother would always say, oh, we should make sure we have this properly planned just in case something happened to you. So if something happens to you, then we'll, be all right. And he go, what do you mean if? It's not if. Said her name was Rosalie. Rosalie, what do you mean if? When? It's for sure going to happen.
Dr. Lanier, who we work with, he always says, if you get hit by a bus,
right,
blah, blah, blah. Right. But you're right. It's not if. It's
no, I hope I don't get hit by a bus. I'm one of those folks. I really want to, I'll tell you what, it's a good start to this conversation is how I want to die. I want to die in my sleep. And I want it to be quick and dirty.
No, or you just want to not wake up?
I just want to not wake up. I don't want to be thinking about it. I don't want to be concerned. Yeah. I just want to go. You know how you hear me talk a lot about my grandfather. He was his name was Nelson Kendall's very important part of my life. He died the way he was afraid of dying. Okay. I remember he was saying, oh man, he says, man, I don't want to die just being down like some of the other folks. Now, he died when he was about 85. So as you can imagine, people in their 80s, everybody's probably when you start in late 60s, everybody's just dropping, And so most of his friends were dying, terminally ill, in the hospital, in a wheelchair, that kind of thing. And that was his biggest fear. He didn't want to die that way. And unfortunately, he, got colon cancer. And that's actually how he died. He died terminally ill, in the bed, So the reality of it is I may want to die in my sleep or whatever, but the truth of the matter is unless you take your own life, then you got to take what's coming, right?
Yeah. Indeed. Have you ever thought about, because I've been in situations with health where, that you start thinking, even you could have like a bad flu or whatever, and then you just start thinking, this can't be the way I go out.
Right.
This is not what I imagined.
Yeah. When I had COVID, I felt like that.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, if I didn't finish so many things. Right. Yeah. And they say your life flashes before your eyes, and I don't think that's happened. Maybe because I wasn't the death. Yeah. It's just more worries about, wait, I didn't finish this. I wonder if I still got time to do that.
Right, yes.
Your kids, it's like so many things I didn't tell them. Ice.
Right, exactly. Right. That happened to me. Years ago, I got in a car accident. I was living in Burbank at the time. And I was approaching, it was late at night. I'm approaching the intersection. Just like normal, listen to the radio, minding my own business, right? And next thing you know, I just hear this crash, boom. And then I hear the crash, boom. And then I see the car coming for me, right? I thought I was toast. I thought it was over. Literally, I started thinking about my family. Literally, I started thinking about life right there in that just milliseconds. You know, I just started thinking about, and I thought I was gone. And once, of course, I was hit, I was just surprised that I was still here. I was kind of like, okay, and touching myself like I couldn't believe that I was still here because this car was coming at me so fast.
How do you? What do you think is that what happens then? Because no one's come back from death. You know, people say that they died and come back, but I'm saying like literally like been dead for 2 weeks and come back and say, hey, there's a heaven out there,
right.
Or
a hell, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we don't know what really happens, but what do you think then happens? I mean, are we just over? Is there a heaven? Do we reincarnate? Are we ghosts?
You know what? Okay, so I have to tell you that I grew up Christian. I grew up in Bethel Missionary Baptist Church, okay? I have to be honest, there's a lot of reasons not to believe in heaven and hell, right? Because if you just think logically, just think we're just sitting here living our life in this world, you know what I mean? And some people decide that they're going to be Christian and believe in Jesus as your Lord and Savior and accept Christ and be saved, right? And that's according to Christianity, that's what's going to stop you from going to hell, right?
Yeah.
Everybody else is going to hell.
If you go to hell.
But according to Christianity, but what I'm telling you is, even though I'm 50, I guess I'm 54 now. I was born in 1971, so, well, I've been whatever, whatever. But the reason I'm 53 years old. So what I'm saying is, Furman, to be honest with you, it's hard to know because I can only know what I've been taught. When you go in church, you almost indoctrinated. Mm-hmm. This is all you know. You haven't heard anything else until I became an adult and I started hearing all kinds of stuff. I started hearing what Hindu people believe, what Buddhist people believe,
But at the end of the day, there's no, proof. Even people that are atheists, they're like, you just die. They don't have proof of that either. They don't have proof that there's nothing else. So there's no proof as humans. That's why I think, what if we are that piece of bread, right? Like we're mold in that piece of bread and we're like, we need to save the resources. And really, one point or another, we're going to eat up this planet. Like we're going to eat it up. Like and I don't know. Or if this is all God's will, like I would want to know, and I know there's a lot of books, there's the Bible and stuff, but like I want to know, like then why are we here? Like why go through all this suffering of a lifetime, and then what?
Well, Furman, actually, you say suffering, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? I've had the opportunity to think about this. Why go through all this suffering? I'm not sure if this. Well, you say this is what's the name of this podcast again?
Opinion Junkyard. When you go to the junkyard, you pick whatever you need.
I love the name. You know what? I think about a situation that I was in. You ever have these just low points in life where you just think, you just effed up, and and you don't even know how you're gonna get out of this situation. You know what I'm saying?
Why you?
Why me? You know what I'm saying? Right? I remember being broke as hell. Okay, I remember somebody gonna see this and be like, hey, Sigmund, you did that, but I did it. I was in Vegas. Okay, you know what I'm saying?
It starts good.
You know what I'm saying? Right?
It's not staying in Vegas.
Right, you know what I'm saying? I remember going to Vegas with my best friend Mike, and I remember, I'm trying to think, was somebody else there with us? I'm not sure, but we were with I think maybe more than one person went, more than a couple people went, and I remember, basically, I gambled all my money away. Literally, when I gambled my money away, I couldn't even. I gambled all my money. Literally, I got a cash advance from the credit card. I got all the money out of the ATM. I couldn't get any more money left, right? Literally, I didn't have enough money to eat. I couldn't believe I had gambled this badly, And I was just thinking to myself, I'm walking around Vegas, and I'm thinking, man, this is exactly what people talk about when somebody needs to go to Gamblers Anonymous. You know what I'm saying? Right, because but here's the thing. I want to explain this. I kept gambling because I really felt like I was going to get that money back. I knew it. Every time I went back to the table, this was on the blackjack table, okay? I just knew this time it was going to happen. So anyway, I'm broke. Literally, in that moment, I can't say that I contemplated committing suicide, but I just remember thinking, what am I going to do in my life? You know what I'm saying? Right. I literally was feeling like that. Like, I didn't think kill myself, but I thought, what's going to be my purpose from now? Like, where do I go from here? And the reason I'm bringing this up, Furman, is because there are times in life where we screw up so bad that we just don't know what to do next. We don't even know if there's a way out of this, right? And the truth of the matter, there's a way out of everything in life, right? Think about that. I mean, I think your question was kind of like, what's our purpose of being here?
That's deep. But tell us, though, how, because you're not there anymore.
Right.
Like, was it like a trigger, or did you slowly, what happened?
Well, clearly, I never went back to Vegas and did that again. You know what I'm saying? I'm done with that. Now remember, I was a lot younger. I didn't have a whole lot of money, but I think I probably lost maybe about $5,000, $6,000.
Well, how did you come back up?
How did I come back up? You know what? Well, I got back home. Thankfully, I told my friend that I had gambled all my money. You know what I'm saying? So I had to ashamedly borrow a few dollars from him. You know what I'm saying? To make my way out of there. But we drove home, and I sat and pondered. Going to Vegas about 4-hour drive, and I'm like pondering the whole time. Like, I can't believe I just made this awful decision. Literally, I didn't even have enough gas money to go to work when I got back. You know what I'm saying? And thankfully, because I have family and some friends, I was able to borrow some money and kind of, get it back together, But I thought about that. Like, let me tell you something. $5,000, whatever, how much I lost at the time. I worked hard for that money, Furman. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I had saved that money. My plan was to do something big with that money. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I remember thinking I wanted to start some type of business or something. And then I just got to Vegas and acted a damn fool.
Were you doing it because you thought this was your come up? Like, if I take this $6,000 and make 12.
I did. I thought that I was going to triple the money. Like, I thought, yeah. You know what happened? Because I was winning at first.
Yeah.
I think I was probably up about $1,500 at first, right? I think I started out with a few $100s, and all of a sudden I had $1,500. And then, of course, as you know, if you stay in Vegas, overstay your welcome in Vegas. They take the money back, right?
You start thinking.
Right, exactly. Right. You know what I mean? I was it on the table. I was like, bam, 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 until it wasn't. You know what I mean? So, but I look at that and I think, man, so I guess my point is that in life, I think we can have success in life. Although another conversation is, what is success? What is the definition of success? Success certainly isn't losing all your money in Vegas. I want everybody to know that.
Well, that's their success.
Well, that's their success, but it's not your success.
Yeah, but talk about some perspective.
Exactly.
They won.
Right, so just everybody know, please.
Someone might be in your position. That's why I was asking you, like, what did you do to keep your mind strong and go from that moment of down to slowly pick yourself back up? Because I think there's a lot of people like that, and especially online gambling. Putting their rent money into these basketball games and losing them. So how did you go from feeling like you lost to I'm not doing this again and I'm going to slowly back up?
Well, you know what happened was I actually went through a depression. I would say I call it a depression. I don't know what a psychologist would call it, but I feel like I went through a depression for probably at least a few months. You know what I'm saying? I was just, and the reason I say that is because I could only really go to work and come back home. Like, I couldn't do anything else. I bring myself to do anything more than just the absolute necessity. You know what I'm saying? Of just getting up, going to work, and coming back home. You know, at the time, I was just getting into doing some IT consulting, and that's where I made this like $6,000, $5,000 or $6,000 I lost. You know, I had made that money. I earned that money working on side gigs outside of work. And I mean, here I am. I'm in my early 20s. I'm thinking I got like $6,000 in the bank. Remember, this is like 30 years. You know, at that time, you got $6,000 in the bank. You were doing all right. But I say that to say because I look back at it, I was depressed for a while. I think what got me out of that depression was finally, I'm gonna tell you, I thought to myself, like, I can't believe you could just be so damn stupid. Like I was just down on myself. And at some point, I was like, okay, snap out of it. You know what I'm saying? You went there, you screwed up.
Yeah.
Now you're going to have to figure out how to come up again.
Wow.
What are you going to do?
Something clicked.
Something clicked in me.
Yeah. Something
just clicked in me. I don't know what exactly that happened. Now, my mother would say, that was the Lord. That was Jesus. That's what my mom would say. My grandma would say, that's the Lord that's talking to you. You know, the Lord talking to you.
Yeah.
Or that may be, or they might say it was the Holy Spirit or something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I say but that happened to me, and it almost instantly for me and got me out of that depression I was in.
Could you have not listened to that message?
I could have easily not listened to that and just been down in the doldrums and just continued to be down on myself. But I feel like in life we have those events where we just really we disappoint ourselves. Mm-hmm. I think many times when people get really depressed, you've done something and you've disappointed yourself. Your decision that you made, you just felt like was so awful and dumb. You know what I'm saying? That you disappointed yourself. You know what I'm saying? You know, and that's why to get back to why, like, what is the purpose? Our purpose here? I mean, thinking about it, I guess you know how sometimes you're having a conversation and it kind of takes you. You kind of got to go around a little bit to get to your answer. I feel like in that case, I think that my purpose for being here, depends on what stage in life. Right? At that stage, you know, I was young, no kids, you know what I'm saying? No responsibilities other than myself. So it was all about what could I do to build myself up and be a successful person. Success to me was having money. You know, that was some success. I needed to have money. I needed to be able to go buy what I wanted to buy, go places, do what I wanted to do. That's what was on my mind at the time, right? So that was my purpose. But I'll look at now, well, I got kids, you know, I have a daughter, you know, 29, I got a son, 11, you know what I mean? Like my daughter, 29, okay, she's grown, you know what I'm saying? But my son, 11, I got to take care of him, right?
You have motivation.
I got motivation now, right? You know, so that's, of course, he's like, I would say, you know, my biggest purpose right now is raising him, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? So what are we doing here? Well, I think, for example, have you noticed like that there's some people who could, like I think we're here to be fruitful and multiply. That's what the Bible tells us to do, right? You know? But to basically, you're born, you grow up, get old enough, you meet somebody, you have sex, have some kids, you know what I'm saying, right? And you got to take care of those kids. And remember, raising kids takes a significant portion of your life. It's like basically 20 years, right? You know what I'm saying, right? You know?
If not more nowadays.
Right, if not more, right? You know what I'm saying?
So they're not leaving home, you know, until 40.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about, so like, for example, now I wouldn't have done it after that bad incident in Vegas. I wouldn't have made that bad decision again because I know better. But I'm just thinking, let's just say I had never gambled before. Right now, I certainly wouldn't do it because I've got a responsibility, right? You know what I'm saying? That's just me. That's I got a purpose of taking care of my son. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I got a wife and son at home, but I'm saying he absolutely needs us to be on point. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Take care of him. So that's kind of, I think, our purpose, you know, at this point, you know what I'm saying? You know, is to take care of him.
Do you think your purpose changes as your life changes?
That's what I'm getting at. You know, I mean, I know this is just conversation we're talking. Yeah. I didn't have like a bullet point to go down.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, but essentially, it depends on where you are in life. You know, like for example, I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone earlier today, And she was asking how my son was doing, how's he doing? She's like, well, what is he like? Because the last time she saw him, he was like, maybe a year or two, 1 or 2 years old, right? He's 11 now. And she's like, what is he like now? Like, he's a good kid. I was like, he's hard-headed. You know what I'm saying? I said, but he's a good person. I can honestly say my son's a good person. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, the reason I'm saying that is because I'm thinking about so many things as we're talking.
Yeah.
But when she asked me about that, I'm like, wow, he being able to say he's a good person made me so proud. You know what I'm saying? To be able to say my son is a good person.
Because you would know if he's not.
You would know, right? Like, I don't know about him.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
Right now. But he's a good person. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so my point is that he's the priority, and I'm pouring into it. Yeah. What was the other question you asked?
Well, it was just more about if the purpose kept changing, but also because it was about the suffering, right? Because we tend to just suffer through life, and then the reward is that you die. And then obviously there's rewards that we think they're going to happen after. But instead in lifetime, we don't have a reward at the end. Like, hey, you made it to your 70s, you're about to die. Here's a cake. There's no celebrating life. At the end of the life, people are going to miss you. They're going to cry over you. It's very painful.
Yes.
So we go through all this pain. Birth is painful. And then death is painful. Even if it's not just a physical form, someone's going to feel pain because you're not here anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, not to question God or anything like that, but wow, that's a very tough system to live in. Like if God put us in this situation, like, wow, God, could it be a little more fun? Could it be a little less pain? Or, like some people say, oh no, there's a purpose for after, and you're going to enjoy the fruits of, but it's like, I kind of want to enjoy it now.
Yeah, no, you know what? I thought about that recently too. I mean, I kind of think about this kind of thing all the time. But I was just thinking about that, like, wow. Like, you ever thought, why do some people seem to get success and other people doesn't? But this is why why I come back to this. I think I mentioned it earlier. What we define as success. What is the definition of success? And when I brought that, be fruitful and multiply it, when I brought that up, I do believe that when you have children, they help to give you purpose other than just yourself, right? And you have that legacy to leave behind. So when you're gone, literally they're living remnants of you. I think about my grandfather, right? And how I mentioned the things that he said. We'll talk other conversations, and you'll probably hear me every conversation we have. If we talk about any type of deep philosophical thing, I'll probably tell you something my grandfather said. You know what I'm saying? And I think about how, wow, I thought about that recently. Like, wow, he's living through me. You know what I'm saying? He deposited all that into me while he was here. You know what I'm saying? And I actually like to believe that me telling people these different things my grandfather told me can benefit them. It could be things that are similar, things that are more in depth, but I believe that somebody I say it to, thinks about it like, oh, so that's right. That kind of, made a bell go off.
He's influencing not just you, but other people.
Exactly. Yeah.
You. Maybe that's your podcast right there, man.
You know what I'm saying? But he was. But see, the thing about it is, he was just one of those people. And I remember when my grandfather died, people talked about how good Nelson was to them, how he gave him an opportunity for something, how he helped them out with something. Maybe he was one of those jacks of all trades, so he could help fix cars and things. About how their car was having a problem, and he came out and helped them with this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just think about when you talk about suffering, I say, yeah, there is some suffering in life, but it's also good stuff too. You know what I'm saying?
There is.
You know what I'm saying? And for him, he was never a person that made a lot of money, but he made impact on people. And it's sad because he had to. I didn't even know half the stuff he did for people until he was dead. Right? All of a sudden at the funeral, everybody's talking about all the great things he did. Right? That's why I like this idea of giving people their flowers. They say why they're here. Right?
Absolutely.
Think of why they're here.
Podcast is there a title that you would call?
Well, you know what? I thought of one called Common Sense, something like the Common Sense podcast, you know, and just I'll just be frank with you. I would describe myself probably as generally progressive, but I'm not far left. You know what I'm saying? You know, I do think we got to have some common sense about some stuff, right? Okay. You know what I'm saying? You know, we don't need to be that far to the left, you know. Yeah. But I'm not far right either. I'm probably a little left of the center. You know what I'm saying? Right?
So the question would be, is there any common sense left?
Exactly,
you know?
but on the left, too.
Right.
On the left side of politics, but also, is there any common sense left? Whether it's like, is that where we should go, like that extreme, you know, or should we like, you know, like that? I was thinking of the name is like, because common sense is not common.
Well, you know what? You know what happens? I think we need to be talking to people about how to think. Right, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And thinking things through. Like with my son, you know, he's only 11, but I talked to him about thinking through your decision, right? You know what I'm saying? You know, like for example, you know, he's a typical 11-year-old. He's going to be disobedient. He's not going to listen and do everything you tell him to do. Why? Because in his mind, he's got a better idea, right? You know what I'm saying? And so, but I always tell him, well, son, think about what you're doing because you do know that there's consequences coming, right? You know what I'm saying? If you had thought it through, you could have saw these consequences coming, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm just thinking, you know, let's just look at our politics right now, right? Listen, we know that if you go too far left and want to let everybody out of jail, you know what I'm saying, right? Yeah. You know, well, we know there's consequences to that, right? People were there for a reason. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You know, so just all of a sudden, this idea of getting everybody out of jail, like, well, that sounds nice. You know what I'm saying? But what are those consequences? What are they going to do when they get out? Do we have a plan? You know what I'm saying?
Which couldn't we?
Exactly. Yeah. So those are just some of the ideas. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Or let's just look at
put everybody in jail.
Exactly right. Or let's look at, for example, solving the our government's finance problem. Okay, we got a lot of debt, right? The government owes a lot of trillions of dollars in debt, right? Mm-hmm. Well, yes, you know, one way of handling is to go firing everybody. You know what I'm saying? You know, but that's not necessarily the way to run government. You know, we got to figure out some ways to come together for this. As to me, this common sense is the way we determine what common sense is for us to come together and talk about it, right? Because every idea in my mind isn't the best idea. I admit that. You know what I'm saying? You know, and I'm willing to listen to somebody else's idea. Or every idea that you have isn't the best. Probably the most likely case is that something in other words, if you think one way, if you think left and I think right, most likely the best idea is probably somewhere in the middle. You know what I'm saying? You know, but we don't find that out unless we're talking about it.
Yeah, but even I think with the government, they compromise. They're not willing to compromise, right? Because the people on the right, they're like, no, we're going to do X. People on the left, no, we're going to do Y. And then there is no compromise. It's like my way or the highway. And then you could just go years arguing about things. And then that's why Congress is just, sometimes it's just, they don't do anything.
They just get nothing done. Right. Yeah. There's nothing. Well, I will tell you this, and I'll just tell you this is something that we can discuss further another time. But we got to get the money out of politics. I think the biggest issue we have in politics right now is the money. So long as these big corporations are able to outspend me and you, right? Our 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 that we send to a congressman who we make, I'm just using a congressman as an example. It could be any level of government. Congressman or congresswoman, okay, we could give him $25, $30, $50, but if you got people coming together as a group dropping $5,000 a piece, you know what I'm saying? And there's 20 of them, you know what I'm saying? You know? Well, they're more likely to get the things they're looking for, you know what I'm saying, than being you, right? You know what I'm saying? You know?
That's absolutely, I always thought that politicians, it is funny because I've been writing about this for a long time, and I have this concept called democracy 2.0.
Yes.
And I always thought that in the next democracy upgrade, that the politicians shouldn't get paid. It's kind of like, if you want to be a politician, you do it for free. Why people say, well, they got to live. It's like, then don't be a politician. Go get a job and live. If you want to be a politician, you got to be, that's what you do. And you because I think if you take that money, that they can't use money. For example, there's some politicians that they make 100, 200 grand a year, leave office with like 100 million. It's like, wait, well, how does that happen? You know what I mean? Because even if you saved all of your paychecks, they will never equal that. And I think once you take that out, like you were saying, like take the money out, but literally out of their salary, where it's like, we'll give you a place to stay and we'll give you food and you just do the job. And if they're not willing to do that because they want to get paid and they want, then that's a corruption. And I think if we take the money out, but I think even more extreme than what you're saying, like out of their everything, where if you really want to make money, go into capitalistic society and do that.
Well, you know what? When I say the money, I'm talking about the political donations. Because essentially, unfortunately, because we don't have a citizenry or voter base that's well informed, we just essentially looking at the commercials and say, looking at what somebody might say on the news and who's got campaign flyers, or even yet whoever the Republican National Party, or let's just say, let me not say the Republican National Party. That's not true. Typically, the way it works is the state's Democratic Party and the state Republican Party will send out a sample ballot, right? You know what I'm saying? Say, this is who we, the Republicans are endorsing, and this is who we, the Democrats, are endorsing. And you'd be shocked how many people bring that thing down to the voting booth and just
mark it up.
Mark it up because they're Democrat, they just follow what the Democrats said. Because they're Republican, they just follow what the Republicans said. Now, it's unfortunate that we're in a political atmosphere where it's hard for many Democrats to be, I'll call it the purple type. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? In the middle, right? You know what I'm saying? Because normally you're either blue or you're red. That's it. You know what I'm saying? No exceptions, But it's only those Democrats that run in, Republicans, that run in districts that have a almost equal number of Democrat and Republican. Those are typically the only ones that'll be middle road. The rest of them are going to be far left or far right.
Because they're forced. And then some people vote even with, I'm Latino. His name's Sanchez. I'm voting for him.
Yeah.
Yen or, whatever. It's like, he's Asian. Yeah, he would make a good treasurer. They're good with numbers or whatever it is. Like, there's people that just vote on their prejudices.
Well, you know what? I have to push back a little bit on that from my opinion. I don't know if people are voting. I don't know if it's prejudices or what they think is safe.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you an example. I believe that a lot of black folks will go to the voting booth and vote for the black person, right? Because they'll think that black person is going to be looking out for their interest. They'll think that, well, think about it. You got to understand, like, for example, in this country, it hasn't been that long that black people could vote. You know what I'm saying? I mean, literally, we could just talk to some of our elders right now, and some of them barely voted then. You get what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, at that time, they were trying to get some black folks in office. Why? Because, the white folks were discriminating against them. So they were trying to put some people in office to change it. And the logical person would be somebody who had a vested interest in you not being discriminated against, right? So that's why they choose the black person, because people think that's the safe person to vote for. Unfortunately, that's not the case.
No.
Unfortunately,
but
I'm just thinking we got to give people a little grace and think about, is it really their prejudice? Are they? It is somewhat prejudice.
It's because I think if you vote, make a decision that important based on a last name. For example, Beto O'Rourke from Texas, he's trying to run from it and things. His name is Robert Rourke, right? He's not Latino, but he put politically his name as Beto because the Latinos are like, oh, he's one of us. Beto, like that's a,
You know, I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah, no,
okay,
that was a decision made to do that. To me, that's the thing. It's like, one thing is if you like him, vote for him, right? But not because of his name or even his race, because, you know, in the ballot box, you really don't know sometimes with these names.
No, you don't know. You don't know.
Because of that, they manipulate names,
Yeah.
and they'll put a last name that fits the majority of people.
Yeah.
You know, like I could put, Furman Yakimoto or whatever, and I go to like a heavily Japanese district and win, because I think they play politics with the name, because the ballot now, I think in the future, not long from here, hopefully there in the ballot box, you can actually see the pictures of the people you're voting for. If it's not out there yet, the pictures who you're voting for, and even maybe, like a little website where you can actually, if you need to do some last minute research, because sometimes I voted for judges that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, I know that they have a Ballotpedia that does that, where they can, I don't know how they get all, it sounds like, I don't know exactly how they get all the information, but it seems like a candidate can, I guess for lack of a better word, register themselves.
Aside, I'm talking about in the actual ballot.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't know if that's good or worse, because now you're going to now see a person say, "Oh, he's this race, so I'm going to vote for this."
It gets dicey, because it would allow people who wanted to only vote for a person of a certain race more opportunity to do so, But if somebody was out in the community properly campaigning, really in them streets, then people are going to know.
What if we take the names, right, and just say, okay, this, or even the party, and go, candidate A believes in blah, blah, blah. Candidate B believes in blah, blah, blah. And now you just vote based on their belief system, not knowing what party affiliation, what race.
That would be an interesting concept.
Because now you force yourself to be like, do I lean towards this person's belief or this person?
Yeah, because then again, so basically, like, let's just use, because, okay, so as an example, so the way our government operates, you could run for local, it would be easy to run for local offices in a nonpartisan fashion. Yeah. Basically, you don't have a party. Everybody just be independent. Just for example, right? You could run for city council like that. Yeah. You could probably run for mayor like that. You could probably run for sheriff. Yeah. You could probably run for the water district, the school board, whoever. Well, actually, I think many of those are nonpartisan offices anyway. Like I think when you run for DA, it's nonpartisan supposedly. So, but if you run for the city council itself in LA, everybody's a Democrat or Republican, right? But theoretically, you're right. You could run on ideas in a local fashion. Yeah. But when it comes to state and federal, I don't know, because the parties are so entrenched. The system was designed for parties. It was designed for a party. But what you're saying is that, Furman, if we could change our politics where basically we remove parties, we probably have a better opportunity for better, results, because people wouldn't feel guilty. Saying? Like for example, I've always been a Democrat, right? To have to vote for a Republican, I would like, because even though I'm sure there's some good people that are Republican, right? You know what I'm saying, right? But because we know, for example, if we vote for your representative, your person in the House of the U.S. House of Representatives, whoever your representative in your community is, we know that if we vote for Republican, right, that means that the Republicans, that's one more opportunity for the Republicans to run the House, right? If we vote for a Republican senator, that's one more opportunity for the Republicans to run the Senate. And we know that historically, they want to cut Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, you know what I'm saying?
Well, that's all these things. But because you voted for a party.
Yeah, so what I'm saying, you're right. So I'm saying you're right, but if we could get away from it, you're right. If we could get away from that and just only vote on ideas.
And then the ideas, too, got to be simplified. Because I don't know if you see when they have preposition whatever, preposition 600. Yeah. And then they go, we want to increase the water safety measures for the water of the safety measures. Do you want to increase it? Yes or no? Vote for this if you want to. You know, they make it to where like, I want to vote no, but I don't know what they're saying. I don't know if no is a yes, or, you know, they complicate the measures so much that you don't know. It's like, are you for children having school clothes, but we're going to kill all the dogs? Yes or no? You know, yes or no? And then you're like, I kind of want the school clothes thing, but I don't want them to kill the dogs. Yes
exactly.
No?
You know, you're right. You know what's funny? I feel like I don't know who it is, but the people, the group that the organization that creates the ballots, I feel like they've tried to get a little more descriptive about what we're voting for lately.
Well, that's the problem. Stop the description and just put, are you for this clean water measure? It's going to cost an extra 2 cents tax.
But
Yes
the
or
devil's
no?
in the details is the problem. See, for
Well, see,
example, in other words, okay, are you for this clean water measure? What exactly is this clean water measure going to do? Like, is it going to be...
Well, you can describe it, but don't put it in a way where it's like, we're trying to... It's a clean water measure, and at the end of the day, it's really a factory that wants to dump some dirty water into the river. But they call it a clean water measure. But it's really a factory, and we need to dump this contaminated water. But it's called it a clean water measure. No one's going to vote for, you know, the contaminated water bill, but the clean water. But that's misleading, right? Because now you're thinking, yeah, I want clean water. But that's not what...
You know, no, we should ask ourselves, do you want to vote to stop these corporations from dumping toxic material into the river? You know what I'm saying? Yes or no?
Exactly, but it's never that. It's always... I just think that politics just confuses people. And then I used to vote without knowing what I was talking about, right? And I stopped... Whenever I don't know, I don't vote for any people I don't see. I used to vote like saying, oh, judge, you know, superior judge. I don't know these, you know, George Sanchez. You know, I'm like, well, he's Latino. Maybe if I get maybe one day I get a parking ticket and I have to face George Sanchez. Maybe he'll let me go, which is not the case. I don't know. But it was dumb opinion. You know, like maybe he's not even Sanchez. You know what I mean? Because like I said again, they changed it. Yeah, his name is Johnson.
What it is, but you just want, unfortunately, our country has a history of whites in power mistreating minorities. That's just the fact. You know, not every white person, but as an example, there was a time when there was all the judges were white. And so if you were a black man or Latino man in the court system, often you got the crap end of the stick.
But even nowadays, even some of the Latino and black judges, not all of them, because I think it's way better than it used to be, but some of them are the harshest. It's weird, man. I remember I always think about Boys in the Hood, right? Where you had the black cop that was like the worst one. We don't want to generalize. I tell you what, but you know what? We know that was probably more common at one time in our history. Like when I grew up in Carson, and there was the sheriff's department. It's still there, but sheriff department. Back then, if you ran across a black cop, they might be just as bad or worse than the white cops. You know what I'm saying, right? You know, you shouldn't get any. In other words, if you were put over by a black cop, you shouldn't have felt any comfort. You know what I'm saying? And feeling like you're going to get like protection better or more fair treatment from that one. That's
you know
Hollywood.
What I'm saying, right?
Hollywood agents that are Latino. You know, it's a very hard industry to break into as an agent. And the Latinos that get in, they very seldom represent other Latinos because they don't want to be seen as like that's who they are. And I'm already Latino. I don't want to represent Latino. Now I become the Latino guy.
Right.
They want to go mainstream. They want to go represent the white actors. And I think they're the ones that are the worst gatekeepers because they actually don't want, they don't want you around. It's like when you're the only Latino or black person at a party. of old white people. You're invited. You think that you see another one of you. It's like, hey, what is you? Immediately you notice them because you're like, is that It's too many of us here right now.
Right.
Like we become like competitive, almost like we can come on, hey, we can all eat. It's like no, I'm eating, man. Like I'm going over there.
Yeah, you know what? Unfortunately, a person like that, they don't really have confidence in their own self-worth. And that's the best way I think that's the way I would say it. They don't really, I think it's just probably right. So they don't have confidence in their own self-worth. You know what I mean? Just not being Latino, not being black, just being Joe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just being
their
Sally.
identity.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, but you know what? The problem is, fortunately, in this country, the system has made people this way. You know what I'm saying? Because the truth of the matter is, we know that historically, it couldn't be too many of us in a certain place. For example, in Hollywood, there was only going to be one black person there, right? On the movie, there was only going to be one black person. They didn't have enough room. Or we got the Latino, or we got the Asian. That's it. You know? Now, it's different now. You know what I'm saying? But the mentalities haven't changed. That's the problem. So but it's different now, and I think we have to be honest and say we've made progress. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? You know?
Yeah. No, we have.
Is it enough progress? No, it's not enough progress until everything is equal for everybody. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Right.
But I think it ever will be.
Well,
that,
maybe not. But my point is, that's why I say we got to keep on fighting for whatever we see going wrong. Like, in other words, whatever we see wrong, we have to speak out against it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Even if it's small stuff, right? What they call it, the microaggressions.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Until I'm treated just like everybody else. You know what I'm saying?
It's kind of like the empires that fall. China, and then they used to be, rule big territories for a long time. Rome. And then they probably thought they were never going to fall. They probably thought, their way of life and everything, their system was going to continue. Now we look back, they fell. And then if history tells us right, no empire has lived forever. So what does that tell us? Talking about life, to close it up and then bringing it back. Countries, there's never been a country that's been forever. There's been, territories, and they have morphed and whatever. But do we really think that the United States, for example, is forever? Like, it's immortal. That our way of life and our system is the way it's going to be forever and ever and ever. And if we really want to be smart about it, it's like, probably not. So what should we do is start thinking of that next phase. It's like, what's going to happen? If not, that's when you get caught off guard and you find these civilizations with like a whole bunch of pyramids and temples constructed. It's like, no one living there. It's like, what happened? This seems like it was a massive empire that there's not even a trace of people.
You know what? You're so right. I mean, let's face it. I mean, if history is a guide, which it is, then no, the country won't be here forever. Now, at some point, I mean, it'll probably be long after we're gone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hopefully. Well, I think about you're right. You never know, but things tend to change. I mean, they can change fast, but generally not that fast, right? You know what I'm saying, right? But I mean, I think about how Trump is saying, go take over Greenland. You know what I'm saying, right? I'm like, well, maybe we might end up being Canada. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. You know what I'm saying, right? I'm just saying, in other words, you know what it is? We'll likely be dead and gone. But my point is, I would like to sort of be this spirit that's able to hang around and see what happens, right?
Maybe it is. Maybe you will be.
Maybe I will be. But I'll be curious to know, like, what comes of it.
What's next in the world? Because, like if we had, just to go in the left field, but if you had aliens come in, and now we're like, wait, this civilization's out there? It becomes where the world is not about countries anymore, because now, no, we just planet Earth. You're an Earthling like me. There's civilizations out there. Now, instead of a country, now you have a planet. Oh, what planet you're from? Oh, I'm from C-star 72. Where are you from? Now, it expands that what we think is like we're the center of the sun, the center of the universe, into, man, we're just microscopic here. Kind of like here in the United States, we think we're like powerful. And I think because of the value that we give it, we are. But at the same time, it's like the dollar. The dollar is only as powerful as you think it is. At the end of the day, it's a piece of paper.
Yes.
we give it value. And the minute that you go, that's just a piece of paper, I don't want it, then it loses that value. So the minute that people start going, United States, nah, man, I'm in the Chinese Federation now, then it loses that value. And then slowly, it just becomes history. Like, people are going to be studying the United States. Like, oh yeah, there was a country called the United States. And what they did is blah, 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 and the pilgrims. And people will study it like we study ancient Chinese history. Like, oh, the Genghis Khan and the conquering of... Yeah, the United States actually went to war in Iraq. They actually sent troops to Iraq. And then people be like, what? They did that?
Why would they do something like that? And what they'll also find out is there were people at the time that didn't think it made any sense either.
Right? Exactly.
But the other people won out, right?
And they brought slaves. Like, what? Yeah, they brought them in forced labor and built. It's like, when you hear like the native stuff in Mexican, Aztecs and all that, they sacrifice virgins and to the gods. And we're like, man, that's crazy. Like, sacrifice virgins to the gods and sacrifice people. Yeah. And then we look at what we have done, and then we're like, we're not that far off. I mean, maybe they're not virgins.
You know what, Furman, we in this country, one thing I thought about recently was how, look at TikTok, right? The whole idea is that the Chinese are going to be able to somehow get your information. And it's a national security problem, right? And I just think to myself, well, I'm actually more concerned with what my government is doing with my information. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
My government who actually has my information. You know what I'm saying, right? What are they doing with it? I'm just thinking about it. This is just a thought. And I really would want somebody to come and tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, the thing about the information, the reason I don't have a big problem with it, because, we're kind of being concerned about information that they gave us. So it's like, this isn't really my information. It's like, for example, and I understand the concern because it's never been done before. But at the same time, oh no, Elon Musk has my social security number. It's like, well, it's not your social security number. That the government gave you that. Like, that's a number to count you, to measure you, to be able to identify you, and it's not yours. When you die, that social is deactivated, and probably some baby's going to get it a few years later. So I see it more. Even if they have control of all information, they already have control of information because the IRS has your social, your bank has your social.
They make it hard. Here's the problem. Like, for example, I've had my identity stolen before, right? It just makes it hard for you in life. I'll give you an example. If let's just say you got pretty decent credit, right? Which these credit reporting companies have come up with this, the concept that they can predict for companies that want to sell you something. They provide a service for creditors that can give a creditor indication of your credit worthiness, right? And so we've all bought into it because we're a consumer, class of consumers. We're a country of consumers, and instead of us paying cash for a car, we finance the car. Typically, instead of paying cash for a house, you finance the house, right? Instead of paying cash for the TV at Best Buy, you put on a credit card. I'm just saying, we're a credit, society. That credit score is meaningful because that's how you're going to get the stuff you want. So if somebody steals your identity and now all of a sudden they mess up your credit, now your life you got trouble now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think, like, if someone's going to do it, it wouldn't be, they're trying to they got a bigger plan, I think, that doesn't include, pulling a credit card of my name and like maxing it out. It could be more sinister. It could be more, maybe it's a good plan. I don't know. But it's not what we're afraid of. Now, if you told me, this local gang got a hold of all of that information, that's when you're concerned because these guys are just trying to rack up a few dollars. I think this is more about the information that's really available because actually you could probably look up your job when you look for a job, they ask for your social. There's so many. Your social is really just an identification number, and that's the most they can get because they probably know how much you owe on your house. They know how much you owe in your credit. They know all of that. So having access to information is not as bad as they're trying to, because I think there's been a push to make people feel afraid of it. It's like, well, if I see on my credit report that Elon Musk got a credit card under my name, there's going to be a problem. So I don't think that it would be that simple.
Elon Musk, I'm going to tell you what the danger is, in my opinion. And it's really, he's just the face, the figurehead of it. He's the guy that's taking all the heat right now, okay? But let me tell you the problem that I see, okay? I see the issue of people's personal financial information. When you heard on the news that these guys wanted to be able to have complete access to the IRS system, right? That means they know where your money's coming from. You know what I'm saying? Everybody you do business with, I'm just saying, like, for example, if you're like just a typical small business, maybe you're a consultant like me or do work like you might get a 1099, right? I'm just saying, so they know who's paying you. They know how you make your money, how much money you made, what your deductions were, all of this stuff. I believe that they could use that information against political enemies. So to the average Joe, it probably wouldn't make any difference at all. But for people who may be speaking out against the current government, those people, I think, are concerned. Because now the easiest way to get at somebody is to get their pocket. You know what I'm saying? To prevent them from being able to support themselves. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Right, I'm just saying, there's a lot of information you could glean from somebody's tax return.
There's so many things that, when there's, the bank can close your account because of your political affiliation. Yeah. Well, that doesn't mean it's been happening where if your bank is left or right, they can literally stop banking with you. To me, that's the real danger when really we have no control over any of that. Because at the end of the day, you could put $1 million in your account and tomorrow there's zero. And you call the bank, hey, I had $1 million in there. Yeah, no, sir, there's no $1 million in here.
No, that's what's so scary about the times we're living in is because this is the first time in a long time that I think people have a legitimate concern about, speaking out and having the government, actually come out against you and start messing around with your money.
But the IRS has done that for years where people that, they will audit you. You know?
Everybody. I don't necessarily agree with what everybody does, but I agree, but I think it's important to respect everybody. If you're a man who feels like you're really a woman and you want to transition yourself surgically to become more like a woman, I don't think that I should stand in your way. I just think you need to be an adult. That's all I'm saying. I'm very concerned about a adolescent making this choice. That's a big, irreversible choice to make, So I'm very concerned about that. I know a lot of the people on the right are trying to make it out that now you're giving, 10-year-old sex changes. I don't think any doctors out there is giving, I don't think so.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. So I'm just saying, but what I mean is I'm willing to speak up for a person's right to do what they would like to do and to be free from persecution about it. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I'm not so okay with that same guy who's now transitioned to a woman deciding that they want to be a track star now. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And I'm like, I think that's a little bit unfair because we know that typically men are faster than women. We know that to be it's a fact. It's not some.
So you're not right where you're like, no, don't do that. And then you're not laughing to do it. And not only just do it, but have an unfair advantage while doing it.
Yeah, I just think that I think it is an unfair advantage. Yeah. I think that there are cases where that person who born a man transitioned to a woman, I think that there are cases where the women that they would compete against are faster than them. Right? There's probably a lot of cases like that. But we know that if this person has a biological advantage, You know what I'm saying? You know, I think that part is, that's the part where a lot of people disagree. Some people say they don't have a biological advantage. Some people will say they do. I think that the likelihood is that they do.
You know what's crazy? That the law that was signed, the new one about trans people or people that transition into womanhood, barred from sports, is only one-sided. If it doesn't apply to a woman that transitions into a man, they can still compete
because people think that they don't have a biological advantage. Now, I guess they actually don't really. The logic is that if it is a female that's transitioning into to be a man, that she's not likely to have, or they, whatever they would like to be called, are not likely to be happy.
Isn't that insulting?
It is kind of insulting because it should be universal,
like
right?
The law should have been...
Yeah, universal, yeah.
You know, from a man to a woman, don't compete. From a woman to a man, don't compete. But they literally left that open. I didn't say, I don't know. I don't think that anything like that is done by luck. I think they're like, it's like a little bit of a, like a slap.
Exactly. But no, but if you think about the whole bathroom thing, right? You think, I know a few years ago, a bunch of politicians were making a big deal. We don't want this man going into the women's bathroom. You know what I'm saying? Even though this man actually really feels like he's a woman, but they think that maybe somebody's going to, lie and, you know what I'm saying, say, and do that just so they can get into the women's bathroom.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, it happened. I'm sure. I don't know if there's a guy that went to jail. A guy, like, he looked like us. And when he got arrested, he's like a felon. He knew he was going to prison. So he said he's a woman. No wig, no transition, nothing. Just, no, I am a woman. And they put him in the women's prison. And he ended up, like, I guess, raping some women in there and doing all kinds of things. And he just been transferred out because he also got some prisoners pregnant to a man's prison. But there's an outrage like, oh no, if he says he's a woman, but there's no effort. And I don't know, because this is like a complicated thing, because it's like, to me, it's got to be some kind of effort. Like, you can't just say, I'm a woman, and then get women's benefits. Like, I could say I'm a woman now and go get, I don't know, a women's grant to start our old women business, and I'm not really feeling that way. But how can you prove? I'm like, I'm a woman, so I want the grant.
That's what I'm saying. Well, see, my thing is, I just think that it's important for us to have honest conversations like this without demeaning people, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, in other words, I'm actually not against a transsexual person. I'm not. I actually don't. I don't agree with it, but I'm not against the person. But I just do think that, you can't not consider everyone else's sensibilities and comfort levels.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In other words, biologically, you're born in the hospital. The doctors, we don't get assigned, they say assignment at birth. I would say for 99.9% of folks, either you have a penis or you have a vagina. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's what determines boy or girl, male and female. That's the determining factor. Now, I know that there are a very, very small percentage of people who may possess both sexual organs, maybe have some things that are not normal. Maybe they might have a uterus, but have, you know what I mean? Who knows? It could be, but so I'm saying we gotta remember, majority of people are born with either or. So let's just, the reason I'm bringing that up is, I think you can't be a transsexual.
It's a very difficult still in society, like a difficult life, because actually I help an organization that it's a trans, they help transsexuals that are down and out, because a lot of them, they go through a lot of housing discrimination, there are a lot of homelessness within them. They can't go into a shelter, they get bullied in there, or, so I can see that part.
Yes, absolutely. And they should not go through that. They should not be. I don't believe that you should discriminate against someone. I believe that they have a right to housing, and just, I believe that they have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, just like everybody else.
Who discriminates the most against them that I was learning by working with this organization is women. Women discriminate against trans women. They they feel like, no. Like me and you could probably be a lot more neutral than a woman. Women are very discriminatory against trans. And then I was discovering too that gays are discriminatory against trans. They don't, because in the gay, I don't know exactly what the politics is, but they feel like, trans women feel like they're women. They don't feel like they're gay. They're, okay, I used to be a man, now I'm a woman. I'm not gay.
Right.
I'm a woman. Gays see them as, no, you're not a woman, you're gay. And then women see them as, no, you're not a woman, I'm a woman. Like, so they go against the whole society by making, by living their life. Like against women, against men, against gay
Trust me, man. Trust me. I actually feel for him because I'm like, if you make that decision, that means you really about that life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You ain't playing around. You saying, hey, no, this is what I feel I am. And I'm going to live it
so strong
out loud. And I'm going to even go through the surgical process to make this permanent. You know what I'm saying? So, and for that, I'm like, whoa, okay. All right, if that's what you want to do, okay, I'm going to respect you. I'm going to respect you. And
I will do that. But I think a lot of society, it's like we see it as whatever we don't understand as crazy. And, for example, I wouldn't want someone I love to go through that. But not because I'm against, but more because, like, we were talking about suffering about life.
Yeah.
You know you're going to suffer. You know
that's
jobs. Go.
We know that this person will not, you're right, because we know that they're going to experience discrimination.
They try to go get a job.
And mistreatment. No, trust me, because, well, you know what it is? I'll give you an example. You look at kids, right? Like, for example, my son, I remember one time we were out somewhere, and he passed by what I believe is a trans woman, where they were born a male, and transition to female. And I want to add just one quick thing. I try to describe people properly out of respect for them, right? I never want to be disrespectful to anybody, and I teach my son the same thing, to not be disrespectful of people. But anyway, so I'm saying that because I think it's important. And that's why I try to use the right words, because I don't want to be disrespectful. He said that woman looks like a boy. That's what he said. You know what I'm saying? Right, And so I was like, who are you talking about? And I looked, and I'm like, okay, and he was a bit younger. You know what I'm saying? So I was really trying to figure out what to say to him. You know what I'm saying? It's like I didn't want to say anything disrespectful about the person, right? You know what I'm saying? So, like, how do I describe this to him? And so I just explained to him, I said, well, you know what, son? Yes. And I even said he, because that's what I'm thinking. He's like, well, he was born a boy, but he doesn't feel like he feels like he's a girl. And he's like, what? You know what I mean? He couldn't get it. And so I struggle with it. You know what I'm saying? I struggle with it. I was thinking about children can see this and think that there's something not totally right here, because all they know is boy and girl.
And it's a difficult thing. Like you said, you don't want to put them down, but at the same time, I think we also grew up in a different generation where we're not equipped. Like you were trying to describe what was going on to your son. We're not equipped to describe what's going on because we never had to describe it.
Well, they've always been there, though.
Yeah, there's always been. Never been, I think, so. Like you feel like you got to walk in like tippy toes. Like it's never been so difficult because you don't want to. Well, especially someone like us. I think other people don't care.
Right.
But if you want to be really like okay with not disrespecting people, at the same time staying true to whatever you believe, then you got to walk slowly because you don't want to offend. But then again, you don't know how to offend because anything you say could be used against you if you say the wrong thing.
And this is why I say we need to be able to have honest conversations. In other words, we need to be able to talk to each other without attacking each other for an opinion. I think a lot of people really don't want to disrespect or be mean to somebody else, but they just feel how they feel about it. And I think that's kind of, I think this kind of dialogue is important because, you know, and I would even be willing to dialogue with a person who's transsexual. You know, dialogue, how do you feel and what I know that, but I already instinctively know they just want to be treated like everybody else. Well, that's really all they want.
Friends that are gay and they're not conservative political, but they're very conservative in the way that they live their life, like in what we call traditional manner. To them, it's not traditional. No, they just live. That's the way they live. Yeah. Where there's people that are straight that are probably living wild lives. You know, like wilder than, you know, those people that it's like this. It used to be deviants, right? And I think in society we categorize gay and transsexual like they're deviants. They're deviating from what we know. That in our generation has stuck, and I think the new generation coming up, they don't see them as deviant. They almost it's part of their society now. It's like, oh yeah, like this is how we do it now. And I think we have a hard time reconciling that. Man, times have changed. Like you said, you didn't see a lot of in school, in high school, in my school. There were no gay people in my high school. There was no gay. Obviously, they were there, but they weren't out.
No, they weren't out. No, you weren't going to be out about it.
Yeah,
right?
you were.
No, there was. You know what? I remember when I was in junior high school. There was one guy there that later when we became adult, it became clear that he was gay.
Yeah,
but
you always knew.
But we knew at the time, you know, that he was.
Those are the people that experience the bully because they're like so trying not to be who they are. You know, they're like, oh, try not to be gay, right? But we all can kind of know.
Yeah.
But they're fighting so hard against it that's when the bully comes about. Where if they were just to be like, okay, you know, I'm gay, what? Well, then now, well, you kind of put a stop to that. Because it's like, oh, well, I was going to bully you about it, but
right, you know,
like,
right, yeah. So, which I do think. I'll tell you this really quick. I believe that it is important for people to be out, and I don't think that anybody should be in the closet about their sexual orientation. I think people should be free to be out of the closet about their sexual orientation, and just to be honest with everybody. You know what I'm saying? If you're gay, if you're lesbian, you're bisexual, or you're trans, well, I guess if you really bought that life, then you're going to be trans, right? In other words, you're going to go through the whole process. But remember, some people, or I believe this to be true, that some trans people, that's when they would do the drag. You know what I'm saying? Right? That was a way to go and be the woman.
That's as far as
but behind closed doors, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? Not out, you know, in your everyday life.
That's where I have an issue because the other stuff, I'm like, okay, whatever. But the issues I have with that, I think if you're in the dating world and you're a trans woman that has not gone through the surgery, you gotta be honest.
Right,
right. Because it's not because you're less of a woman or whatever, but if you got a straight man that's thinking that you're a woman and then he finds a surprise, you know what I'm saying, like down there, that's a problem.
My question
you gotta be in front of the get-go. Like,
does that happen?
I think it happens a lot.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, I'm just thinking, like, I mean, okay.
But not because of them, but because there's a guy out there, he gets drunk, right? And you can't talk to him. He's belligerent drunk. He says he thinks it's a pretty girl, and she is, or whatever at the time for him. But that pretty girl knows, okay, this guy don't really know that, you know, I got something extra. It's just to have the conversation with him, like, look, just so you know, I have a thing there. You know what I'm saying? Before you go and get a hotel room and do all of that, you know, because then now you're putting someone in a situation where you didn't give them a choice. Because if you tell them, look, I got a thing down there, and the dude's like, I don't care. Well, you know, that's on him. But when it's the deception that he's going to get a vagina and he ends up with, I don't know, an 8-inch clitoris, and you...
Yeah, that's a problem, right? Well, you know what? I feel like, first of all, I know this may sound discriminatory, but I'll just, maybe discriminatory may be the right word, but I feel like if a person is transsexual and they're interested in dating, I think we need to have places for that. Okay? Where the men go in there knowing that these women are transsexual.
Well, they are,
you know
right?
Right. In other words, but not You know what I'm saying? That's a gay bar, right? A bar where you, in other words, but not just a regular heterosexual bar where the guy is just assuming that these are biological women.
That's
Like,
the thing.
think about it. You can't getting drunk, all that kind of stuff. If you are a man in the process of transitioning, hasn't done so yet, you come on. You got to know you can't just.
They belong in that gay bar, you know. And now
I'm not saying the gay bar. I'm saying a bar for transsexuals. I'm serious.
Yeah.
I know it may seem funny,
but they don't feel like they fit.
Because if we,
they're
but I'm
women,
saying,
you know,
but,
to them they're a woman.
But you're saying, see, I asked the question, how often do you think that happens? And you like, well, often. Okay, so
I'm assuming often because
if that's happening often, Freeman, then okay, I got to put that on the trans person because you understand the society that we live in, okay? So unless you have expressly explained to someone that you are trans, I don't care whether you have fully transitioned or not.
So you said they have to disclose.
I think you need to have to disclose.
Okay,
that.
how about this? How about if they did go through the transition?
Whether you have fully transitioned or not.
But see, then what's the point of transition? Then?
You know what? No, listen to me, man. Because, okay, for example,
I know what you're saying, but
my understanding is the doctors have gotten pretty good in their process these days of transitioning.
Yeah, so you still have to disclose even after you.
Yes, I think you should, because you know what, man, it's like fraud.
Well, for a marriage or for like a one night stand?
I'd say for either or. I'd say regardless. I know that it seems mean. I don't think.
Or
it's
should
mean,
you have to ask?
I think you should have to tell. Okay. I don't think anybody should have to ask. I think you should have to tell.
Well, because what if you ask a naturally born woman or whatever, you know, like a real woman or whatever? I don't know what the term would be.
Biological woman. That's what.
That would be insulting to her, right? If you're asking, hey, are you?
I don't think that you should have to ask a person. I think that the trans person should need to tell anybody that they involve themselves with.
That's
because hold on. What I'm saying is, if I just meet you on the street, right? This is okay. Now we're only talking about those transsexuals that really look a lot like a biological woman. I say a good portion of them you can pretty much tell.
Well, see, that's where I think they're fighting against that, right? Because I think they're saying, no, I'm a woman. No, I know what you're saying.
You can't do it, man.
But that's the argument, right? Like, because then, like, if you're a woman, and let's say they make a law, and they say you gotta disclose that you know, whatever. They said, well, I don't have to because I'm a woman. I only trans women, and I'm a woman. Then they wouldn't fall under that law anyway.
Yeah, I know what they're saying, man. I just think that's dangerous.
No, it is.
That's dangerous because, well, it's okay. Well, let me say this. You know what? I don't say that's dangerous proudly because there's no justification for somebody to respond violently when they find that out. There's no justification for that. It may be wrong for that. I believe that the trans person is plain wrong for not disclosing that they're trans. I think that you just must do that because you know that the assumption is generally would be that you are a biological woman. I'm just using, for example, a man that's transitioned to a woman. The assumption is that you're a biological woman. You know that. You know what's going on. You know that this guy probably doesn't know. Okay? So to me, you're deceiving him. You know, and that's just wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it gets
wrong. I know what they want to be. I understand what they want to be, and that's fine. It's fine how you feel. But if you know that if you know that the assumption about you is something different than what you actually are, because think about it. Okay, let's put it in better terms. Guy meets a girl in a bar, right? He believes that this woman is born a woman. He believes this woman never had a penis. You know what I'm saying? Never had a surgery. Never had hormones. Never had to take hormones. Any of that. He believed this woman is just came out like this and then this is what they are. Right? So just to be plainly clear. Think about that. So I can tell you right now, I have to say, I'd be pretty upset. I'd be pretty upset because that's not what I was looking for.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying about it. You'd be surprised for sure.
Yeah, I'd be pretty upset. And tell you the truth, I probably wouldn't ever tell anybody. I would keep that a secret. You know what I'm saying? Like, nope, I ain't telling that one. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I wouldn't say it because I know that people would tease me about it. Oh yeah, see, I knew that, right? You know, I mean, that's what people would say. But see, what I'm saying, for me, is I can say all this and say at the same time, I respect their right to exist. I would speak up for them in their right to exist. They shouldn't have to be mistreated by anybody. They deserve all the same rights and privileges as, I'm just using an example, as in this country, as being American as I do. But I think, though, that just, life ain't fair. And if you were born male and feel like, you had the wrong gender assignment, you got the wrong genitalia, okay, fine. You can do something about it. But you got to let me know.
It's a slippery slope because if you open that can of worms, you have to disclose to people, I don't know, that you're black. You know what I mean? Like you're I don't know, whatever the reason might be. And you're like, oh, by the way, I let you know I'm an African American.
Well, I guess if I was not obviously black, right? You know what I'm saying? Come on, I mean, we got to use common sense here, right? You know what I'm saying? Right? If I were a very fair-skinned person, right, could pass, right?
Yeah.
Well,
it's close.
And I meet a woman who might be white, right? I guess I think you should disclose this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you might have some children that, you know what I'm saying? Where did this black child come from? Right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I really think that people should.
Or venereal diseases.
And like that right there, I think that's even more important than the trans thing. Okay? If you got one, if you have herpes, if you have HIV, yes, you should tell your sexual partner this.
Yeah, well, see, that's what I mean.
Absolutely.
I think it's we pick and choose, like our disclosures, right? Because whatever makes us look bad, like that's what we don't disclose. What you're proud, none that you would be proud of venereal disease, but that's a difficult conversation. Like imagine, oh, by the way, I got this and that.
But you got to say it. You got to because this is something that could affect the other person, and they should have a choice in the matter, right? They should have a choice whether or not they want to expose themselves to this. Because absolutely, you got to do that. I mean, how would you feel if somebody knowing they had, some disease that was communicable, and then you contracted it from them,
and they knew it,
and then just didn't tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, how, what I'm saying? Like, that's an awful thing.
And I think it's probably very common. I think it's very, because...
it's more common than you think.
Yeah.
A lot of people just don't say anything, which is, I don't know. I would tell anybody, I think that's an awful thing to do.
Yeah.
To not tell someone.
Talking about common sense.
Yeah, that's common sense. We got to be considered. How would you, in other words, somebody gave it to you, right? How did you feel when you got it?
Yeah, no, sometimes it's even weaponized. Sometimes it's on purpose.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So, man, this is, I'm glad we're here talking, man. This is,
thank you so
much.
What
is this, the Junkyard, what?
Opinion Junkyard. Yeah, it's a domain, opinionjunkyard.com.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. I'm looking forward to doing this again, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this actually ended up being a lot easier than you, it seemed like it was going to be hard, but it wasn't.
And also, I also wanted you to do it because I think this opens what you're about to do.
Right.
I think it's like you see that you already have all these ideas.
Right.
And I think we try to get too prepared for these podcasts or whatever. And it's like, no, like you don't need to do that. Sometimes you already have it in you.
Right. You just throw it out there, right.
Not everyone, is going to agree with everything. But you're not trying to please everyone. You're saying, this is what I believe. Based on what I know, this is what I think.
Right.
So it's an opinion. I think we all have one. We all see like the same shade, different shade of the same color.
That's right.
We're just like, oh, that's blue. But now if we go deep into how blue that is, your blue is going to be different
exactly.
than mine.
That's right, man.
It's like time. People think that time is like we have the same time. And actually time moves differently for different people. Like that's a scientific fact that time may move faster for you than for me. Or, you know, we travel through time at different speeds.
Yes, sir.
And then we always like, no, we have the same minutes. It's like, no. That's why clocks, they get desynchronized. Because, you know, you're wearing a watch, and the same watch I wear it, and we go through life in 10 years, they won't be in the same. We travel different. So subscribe or whatever y'all got to do. Peace.